So a couple weeks ago, Microsoft had their second annual MS Secure event. And kind of knew, like from when they had the first one a year ago, that the goal of this one was going to be basically a launch party for security, Copilot for security. It wasn't a big surprise. A lot of the folks on Twitter that I follow have been talking more and more about Copilot for security. So it wasn't a huge surprise when they announced that it was going to be GA April 1, which is next week. Pretty excited about that. But that really wasn't what stole the show for me. So about a year ago, I was at another inaugural event for CyberCon VA here in Richmond, Virginia. And at that event, they invite a bunch of CISOs, CIOs to come in and talk about changes they've made or improvements they've driven in their organizations. And for the first event, they got a guy who had a really interesting approach to how he had fundamentally changed their threat modeling for his organization. They were a huge company. I don't remember who it was. 50,000 plus seat organization. Basically, when he came into the role, they were doing a lot of firefighting. Pretty much handling threats the way a lot of us have over the years. Read about a 0-day, panic, try to figure out the blast radius, try to quickly assess mitigations, close it, say, whew, and go have a margarita, right? But he said, no, we're not doing that anymore. What he did was he started looking at a continuous and evolving approach to understanding risk, constantly reassessing it, constantly reassessing what their attack surface was, how to approach ongoing security in a way that allowed the noise, the small stuff that could expect to be handled for things like Patch Tuesday, to just be handled by Patch Tuesday. And what that allowed them to do was come up with a system where they could prioritize threats based on how much real damage could be inflicted on their company at a given moment. Fast forward a couple months, we start to see talk of a new paradigm for attack surface management. And then June, July, August, we get a name for it. Continuous Threat Exposure Management. Gartner published a paper on it in August that largely codified exactly the process that this guy had talked about. And it's not really fundamentally new, right? This guy had been at his job for a couple of years already, had already largely implemented this. So this new idea, this CTEM, Continuous Threat Exposure Management, really builds on the concept of understanding and scoping your attack surface on an ongoing basis, understanding the threats to which that attack surface is exposed, the real risk to your organization, and defining methods to deal with it, and continuing it on an ongoing basis, okay? Gartner explains it better than I probably did, but what's neat, and why we're talking about this now, is that the back half of MS Secure 2024 was the introduction of a Microsoft solution for this concept. And I caught a screenshot of it actually during the Copilot for Security keynote and jumped over and hit the pause button on my computer. Instantly jumped over to the demo tenant, and holy moly, there it was. Live, brand new dashboards around exposure management. Now, in the Microsoft solution, we don't actually have a full name for it yet. Don't know if it's going to be Defender for Exposure Management or what, but it's right there on the security.microsoft.com or defender.microsoft.com in first run tenants. And it's underneath the threat intelligence section. And what it does is, just like I said, it's designed for helping you scope your attack surface, understand what risks, what mitigations you might want to implement, to do it on an ongoing basis. And it's broken down in a couple of key areas. The first thing I'll note there is that it actually moves secure score to this area. I think it's really interesting, right? So we've had secure score for a while. We're looking at the current state of our security posture. Secure score does a great job of understanding the buttons you've clicked, state of your environment. It does it from the inside. So it lacks visibility of what you're really exposing to the internet. Exposure management gives you that framework to take the content of SecureScore that's now living in there and add it alongside what they are now considering to be your attack surface and second part I can't remember the name of. That's the risk of doing these out here. But the attack surface has your assets and your attack paths. Now the assets really interesting because go back a couple of years ago and I did a video talking about Defender external attack surface management. And when I first saw this, I thought, oh my gosh, they've brought that tool in. Well, they haven't. What they're actually doing to capture your external attack surface in this tool, is pull data from other Defender workloads. So if you've ever gone in and defined asset categories or asset groups in Defender for endpoint, one of the options that you can filter on is whether or not a device is public facing or internet facing, but it's not something that's being actively probed from the outside in the way that external attack surface management does. So your assets are going to be a combination of the things that you define as being critical assets, like identities, like devices, cloud resources, and you're going to define those not in exposure management, but in Defender overall. So this new dashboard or this new blade really isn't specifically a new tool so much as it's a new way to consume the content and process the content and make decisions of the content of other workloads. So we got our assets and we got our attack paths. That's fascinating. What we really want to do is we want to decide what are the security frameworks to which we want to align our attack surface. And that's where it gets really interesting because we go down into the second section, name escapes me, apologies. We broke that down into initiatives, metrics, recommendations, and events. Now, events and recommendations, that's SecureScore content. That's all it is. It really is. The recommendations are going to align to the metrics that you choose. And a metric may contain one or more recommendations, but that metric will give you a way to track things like how we're doing on password management. Say that the metric is passwords, right? There may be multiple controls to exercise for passwords, and those will all surface up as recommendations. And again, they're just SecureScore actions. But we don't align them to SecureScore directly. We align them to initiatives. Those initiatives are where things get really fascinating because we're not tracking them in terms of whether or not they're complete or not complete, using very specific language in those initiatives of whether or not we're compliant. Now, furthering that discussion, and why that's fascinating to me, is that some of those initiatives align to things that we have been paying for as premium assessment templates in Compliance Manager. If you've looked at the licensing soup that is Compliance Manager, a customer that it contains 100% licensed, a customer that is licensed for 100% of their users at M365 E5 or E5 compliance can use free free premium templates of Compliance Manager forever and trial up to 25 additional ones for 90 days. Beyond that, those premium templates cost $2,500 per template. Now, I'd rather spend my $2,500 to align to a regulatory framework, right? So I'm trying to drive to PCI DSS, trying to drive to NIST 800, 171, 53, whatever you want, CMMC level 2, fine. I would rather not spend my money in Compliance Manager aligning my environment to a CIS benchmark. Currently, you can't. You can do CIS, You can do NIST 800, remember the number 209 or something like that, that's zero trust framework. But those are also now listed as initiatives under exposure management. And those aren't the only ones. Right now there are 13. They align to security frameworks and best practices. They also align specifically to actual threats, like business email compromise. So again, the point of this is to manage our attack surface on an ongoing basis. And that's going to mean building in controls to mitigate against specific attacks while also building in best practices. Okay, so what is this going to cost us? We don't know, actually. It's very interesting. It's the first time in a long time I've seen Microsoft just drop a whole bunch of new dashboards, new contents, and controls into my tenant, like no warning. Now, if you read how this content is built, like I said, most of it is just secure score, right? But it's secure score in a wrapper. But then so is compliance management. And the premium templates don't really care where they get their data from. They're going to charge you that $2,500 regardless. This, though, not only takes secure score data, but it will actually tell you when you try to look at other things in your external attack surface that it needs data from things like Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Identity. It'll actually tell you specifically that Defender for Cloud needs to be step-up licensed to the CSPM modules to get full visibility. But to my earlier point about external attack surface management, it does not yet pull that data in. And that's where I think Microsoft has a couple of question marks to solve. One of them is, what is this going to cost me? Am I going to get charged additionally to have access to the same data, just in a different wrapper? There are third-party commercial solutions that cost about the same amount as a compliance manager assessment. But I would have to actually get that data to those solutions and extend my identity attack surface to those third-party solutions. So by keeping it internal, could Microsoft charge a little bit more? Or do they just roll it in with part of Secure Score, since that was delivered with the promise of always being free? We don't know. But where I'm actually really more interested is to know what it means for the future of the Defender external attack surface management process. That is currently an Azure workload. It has a licensing structure that is also fairly complicated. It, though, is not aligned specifically with an overarching CTEM solution or CTEM mindset. It's really more aligned with the OWASP top 10. So what do I see as the future? I kind of wonder if external attack surface management, the Defender product in Azure, might get renamed, might get realigned, might get repurposed a little bit, or if we're going to start to see that data brought into the solution as it moves out of preview. If it remains a part of this, if we're actually going to start monitoring our own resources with Defender External Attack Surface Management listeners on the internet as part of this CTEM solution, I would expect that we're going to see a licensing cost for that. I might expect that we might see something like a CTEM P1 and P2. And I feel like that's likely where this is going to go. Where a P1 may give you access to the frameworks, and a P2 may give you access to the components. I don't know. It's exciting. I spent about 30 minutes on it at Secure. I've been exploring it and trying to understand it. It's fascinating to me because it aligns perfectly with a couple of public talks that I've been planning to give in the next few months. So, once again, Microsoft is turning something I had planned to be a theoretical conversation around best practices and turning it into a product you don't even have to go sign up for yet. Like I said, it's in preview, it's in your tenant, explore it, figure out how to work with initiatives, metrics, recommendations, I didn't cover events, but that's really just secure score events, right? How much has your score improved or regressed? Anyway, thanks. I'm excited to finally figure out how to put the camera back on the bike, so hopefully I can do more of these. Appreciate you watching.